Hello friends, I am Arpit and I am here with today's analysis. Today is 17th of October and we are going to deal with three very important topics which are in news. The first topic which we are going to cover today is the World Food Day. The World Food Day was yesterday, that is 16th of October. And this year's theme is Water is Life, Water is Food, which clearly signifies the importance of water for agriculture and how to make it more and more sustainable in these times of climate change, because climate change is increasing aridity and reducing the availability of water, which enhances or amplifies the problems particularly for the agricultural domain. Side by side, we have to meet sustainable development goals also. Only 7 years are left for meeting those goals. And one of the goals is to eliminate hunger. Will we be able to do it in these times of climate change? That is a big question. So here in this topic, we will be detailing all those things with respect to the connection between availability of water and agriculture. Then laws of war. Now, the conflict is going on between Israel and Gaza, and in all this, the laws of war have come into picture. Are the laws of war being followed in that conflict or not? So, what are the laws? First we will see international laws of war and how these laws of war are not being followed. Yes, they are not being followed, they need to be followed. We will see in this particular topic. Then the next is Indian Ocean Rim Association, IORA. There was a meeting between all the foreign ministers of the 23 members of this grouping, that is Indian Ocean Rim Association. Sri Lanka has assumed the presidentship of this particular grouping for the next 2 years and India the vice presidentship. India will obviously assume the presidentship of this particular grouping in 2025, that is 2 years down the line, when Sri Lanka's presidency will be over. So we'll look into the details of what IORA is, when it was formed, where is its headquarters, what are its objectives, what are its focused areas or priority areas, to give you a complete understanding about this particular grouping. So these three topics we'll be covering. Let's begin with the first topic, that is the World Food Day. World Food Day every year is celebrated on 16th of October. This year the theme was Water is Life, Water is Food, which clearly signified the importance of water for agriculture, which obviously gives us foods on our plates. But the big question or the big challenge or the roadblock is global warming or climate change. With global warming, aridity is rising, means fertility is a big challenge in terms of soil moisture is reducing, and in that availability of water obviously will play a crucial role. Availability of water will also be a challenge because water is also evaporating too much. The water systems are drying. So the problems overall for this agricultural domain or agricultural sector with the advent of climate change is immense. But our job is to find solution to those problems. Are we finding adequate solutions? Are we adapting ourselves to climate change, or are we doing climate smart agriculture? That is something which is a big question that needs to be addressed. That needs to be addressed if we want to eradicate hunger, which is one of our sustainable development goals also, and only 7 years from now are left for achieving that goal. So you need to understand this connection between agricultural productivity and availability of water. It is a big challenge for India also and countries all across the world. Like 60% of agriculture in India is rain-fed. Rain-fed means it depends on the rains. And there we need to conserve water, effectively utilize whatever water is available. 40% of the agricultural productivity is coming out of that particular 60% area, that rain-fed area. So if we do not conserve water over there, or if rainfall is erratic, then definitely it can lead to a lot of problems over there. 60% area rain-fed, 40% irrigated area. In irrigation also there are problems because a lot of withdrawal of water has led to depleted water tables. It has led to other environmental problems like run of the, I would say, agricultural waste and all. It has caused algal blooms in water bodies. There are problems related with irrigated agriculture also. So we need to address those also. And the answer lies in justifiable, judicial, sustainable use of water for agriculture, so that waters also gets effectively utilized and productivity is also meeting the ever rising population. That is the gist of this topic which we are going to cover. So let's get started. The theme for World Food Day, that is October 16, this year was Water is Life, Water is Food. It calls for urgent action in managing water wisely. So managing water wisely is something which is required. Availability or lack of water has become even more critical with increasing climate extremes, means extreme cold or extreme hot. And now we have less than 7 years to achieve the SDGs. This becomes very, very important, and organizations like FAO, that is Food and Agricultural Organizations, or International Fund for Agricultural Development, and the United Nations World Food Programme, these three organizations, IFAD, FAO and WFP, these are the food organizations under United Nations. All of these are concerned with respect to agricultural productivity, because all of these know that climate change is an established fact, and in all this it is very, very important to tackle. You can see World Food Day, 16th October 2023, Water is Life, Water is Food. The significance of water with respect to agriculture, if I say. So as I told you that 40% of the total food production comes from 60% of India's net sown area, which is rain-fed, means dependent on the rain. Now in these areas which are dependent on rainfall, whatever water is available with the rains, that has to be utilized judiciously. And that is why in schemes like MG Narega and all, the emphasis is on creating more and more physical infrastructure for storing water, like the ponds and all. That will make not only the water available for agriculture but for domestic purpose also. Simultaneously, we are also having that Jal Jeevan mission of the Government of India, which aims to provide 55 litres of water per person per day through a functional household tap connection in rural households, actually in all rural households of India by 2024. That purpose will also be met. So water availability has to be done. Now, there is an urgent need to adapt climate change by promoting technologies and practices that make rain-fed production more resilient and sustainable. It has to be made more resilient and sustainable. We have to conserve the water, whatever is available from the rainfall, and we have to use it judiciously. And when I talk about irrigated agricultural, which accounts for 40% of India's net sown area, it accounts for 72% of the global freshwater withdrawals. Globally, if I talk about, irrigated agriculture uses 72% of the freshwater. Whatever freshwater is being withdrawn for whatever purpose, agriculture, industry, or I would say domestic purposes, maximum is used in agriculture, that is 72%, which again highlights the significance or the importance of water. So this becomes a very, very, I would say, significant commodity nowadays, and it is believed that the next world war, if it happens on water only. Some projections which are done by India only. Now we have 2 years in picture, 2050, 2080, and we have projections for rice, wheat and maize. So let's see what are our projections. Projections, particularly we have to keep one assumption in mind, that without any adaptation measures taken by the government. No adaptation measures have been taken, means no measures such are taken which are making us resilient or which are making the agricultural setup resilient. Without adaptation measures, rain-fed rice yields, means those rice crops which are in those areas which are rain-fed and not irrigated, they are projected to reduce by 20% in 2050 and 47% in 2080. While irrigated rice, where irrigation is there and rice is grown in those areas, projected to decline 3.5% in 2050 and 5% in 2080. So which means that irrigated rice yields, they will reduce less as compared to non-irrigated or rain-fed rice yields. That will be a major challenge. So what you can do is you can increase irrigation or areas under irrigation. The net sown areas under irrigation can be increased, which will lead to less, I would say, losses. But irrigation also has its own challenges. You will withdraw a lot of water, which will deplete the water tables. That can lead to a lot of other challenges. That is also a big concern. Then next is wheat yields are projected to decrease by 19.3% in 2050 and 40% in 2080. Kharif maize yields could decline by 18% and 23% in 2050-2080. So reduction only you will see in the crop yields. But an assumption here is without adaptation measures. So what it means that we will have to take certain measures, then maybe we could reverse this reduction. We could increase productivity or we could increase availability. Obviously, research and development will play a key role here to make those kind of agricultural products or those kind of, I would say, crops which are climate smart products which require less water. So this has to be done. Now steps needed in this direction are political commitment should be there and a concrete investment should be there in adaptation measures. Innovation and proven technologies should be focused upon to improve productivity, adapt to climate change and become more resilient to shocks. So research and development definitely will play a key role. Environmentally and socially sustainable and financially viable irrigation should be there. So irrigation obviously will reduce the losses as we saw, but it should be environmentally sustainable, socially and financially viable also. It should not lead to other problems. Then reduce their climate footprint of agricultural production, because agricultural sector a lot of emissions are done. If you use the tractors, even from rice fields methane is emitted. So that also has to be taken care of. It should not exacerbate climate change because it will be kind of a cycle. Agriculture doing climate change impacting agriculture. So this vicious cycle will be created, that has to be broken. So climate footprint of agriculture should be reduced. Bring sanitation and drinking water supplies closer to the rural households. The Swachh Bharat mission, the Jal Jeevan mission are aiming this, so that people do not have to go longer in search of water. Adopt efficient food and water recycling strategies. We've talked about it in ODF++, where we are taking the water, recycling it, reusing it. We are not wasting it in the streams. So that is basically one thing which needs to be adopted. If that recycling and all is done, the water use will be more efficient, I would say. And definitely this is a way of adapting ourselves to climate change, and obviously it is good for the environment also. So we need to do this, we need to take these kind of steps and measures. Steps already taken by United Nations: solar for resilience, secure fishing, revival of millets, because International Year of Millets has been declared 2023 as millets is basically an alternate source of nutrition. This alternate source of nutrition will focus or will reduce the focus on rice and wheat. These are the two stable crops, and rice is a very water intensive crop. And the best thing about this, I would say, the millets is that it requires very less water. It can grow in semi-arid and arid regions. These type of regions are increasing day by day with the advent of climate change. But just the need is demand, which was missing due to awareness. So now this 2023 International Year of Millets will definitely increase the awareness about consumption of millets. Then Food and Agriculture Organization also supports sustainable transformation of agri-food systems, climate smart agriculture practices to improve water use efficiency. Now it has done a program in Uttar Pradesh with the farmers over there to include or to increase climate smart agriculture over there. So these are the steps which have been taken, but these are the steps which need to be diffused more. It needs to impact more number of people, and more number of such steps should be taken. Then only we will make ourselves adaptive, and hopefully in the future water's usage will be more efficient for agriculture. Agricultural productivity will be such that it will be meeting the demands of the ever increasing population, and hunger definitely will have no entry in our society. So this is to be understood. The laws of war. Now as we know that the conflict is going on in Israel, between Israel and Hamas. Hamas, a militant organization which used to control the Gaza Strip, has launched an outright attack on Israel, has taken many Israelis as hostages. In response to that, the Israeli government have launched an all-out attack or an all-round attack on Gaza, basically. The attack by both these parties, they are not considering the international laws for war. Why they are not considering? Because they are targeting the innocent civilians. Israel in the Gaza Strip, Hamas in Israel, as it has taken a lot of people as hostages. And this is basically a violation of international law of war. Now these international laws are very, very important to be followed when a conflict is there between two countries or between one country and a non-state actor. Now this present conflict is between a country, that is Israel, and not a country but a non-state actor, that is Hamas. There also these laws have to be followed, and welfare of the people, the humanitarian, I would say, efforts need to be there. Innocent people need not be targeted. That is all against the laws of the war. So let us look into it. What does it has to say? Now the laws of the war have come into picture due to this conflict. Now what are the laws of the war? There are two separate and independent international law questions. The first question is, under what conditions or what circumstances when can countries use force? Means, simply put, under what conditions can countries use force? So under this question there are laws, and this is called as jus ad bellum. It is regulated by United Nations Charter. The second question is, how is a war to be fought? What military actions are permissible? This is the second question, and under this there are laws. We are going to discuss these largely, that how a war should be fought. This is called as jus in bellum. Okay. So this is also under the UN Charter to use force. So both are under the UN Charter, but our focus will be here, that how is a war to be fought. The how of using force or the law of war is known as the International Humanitarian Law, IHL. Now IHL will be in picture because this law tells us that how a war should be fought, or what are permissible things in a war. This international humanitarian law is in this Geneva Convention of 1949 and the additional protocols of 1977. So at times you will see or read about it that according to the Geneva Conventions, this is allowed, this is not allowed. So Geneva Convention is that broad document in which there is a law, that is IHL, International Humanitarian Law. In that it is written how a war is to be fought or not. It regulates the conduct of the parties or groups engaged in the armed conflict. Its primary objective is to protect civilians and reduce the sufferings of a war, no matter how just the cause of fighting a war. The warring parties must comply with IHL. Israel cannot say that I am more justified because Hamas had taken captives, or Hamas has taken hostages some Israeli people. So I will launch an all-round war and I will damage, or I will cause damage to the civilians living in Gaza Strip. No, it cannot. You have to follow the law, whatever the situation is or whatever the condition is. This law actually is proving false that particular statement that everything is fair in love and war. No, everything is not fair. There are laws, there are rules. You have to follow them. And which law? One such law is how it has to be fought. This law addressing this question, and that law is International Humanitarian Law, IHL. Is IHL applicable in Israel and Hamas? Definitely it is applicable. IHL is applicable in two circumstances. First circumstance is basically international armed conflict. International armed conflict is between two states, two countries like India, Pakistan. So IHL will be applicable. That is called as an international armed conflict. The second is non-international armed conflict, where one party is a country, the other party may be not a country. So like here, NIC includes non-governmental forces, Hamas, involved in battle with governmental forces, that is Israel. Common Article 3 of Geneva Convention applies to NIAC, means IHL is applicable over here. Thus Israel and Hamas are obligated or obliged to abide by IHL. What about the civilian killings? Obviously, civilian killings are unauthorized or against the IHL. They should not be there by both the sides, by Hamas also in Israel, by Israeli forces also in Gaza. The primary objective of IHL is that during the armed conflict, distinction is always being made between combatants and civilians. So civilians should not be targeted. War parties can only attack combatants and military targets, not civilians. Now, accordingly, the killing of civilians by Hamas is illegal, and obviously the use of force by any military attack by Israel, it also causes disproportionate harm to the civilians in the Gaza Strip, which is also not according to the law. So both of these parties are not upholding the IHL, which needs to be upholded, which actually needs to be upholded. And very recently we have seen gestures from Israel, which is allowing time to the civilians in Gaza Strip to evacuate. That is, I would say, something which is bringing Israel closer to following the IHL. Now civilians will evacuate, then only the militants will be there of Hamas. Then that attack will be called as, I would say, justifiable under IHL. Is hostage taking legal? Obviously not. This is illegal. But actually IHL is not talking about it. It has been defined, or it has been treated as a war crime according to Article 8 of the Rome Statute. Rome Statute is that statute, if you remember, which has established the International Criminal Court, ICC, a treaty establishing International Criminal Court. According to that, taking hostage is a war crime. So Article 1 of International Convention Against Taking of Hostages also recognize hostage taking as a crime. This is another convention with respect to hostages. So both these articles, they define, or they say that this is a war crime. The Gaza Strip blockade. Now you all have seen or might have seen various videos in Gaza where people are cooking by burning wood. Collective cooking is happening. They are charging their mobile batteries by using the car batteries. This is the situation over there in Gaza. Why? Because Israel has blockaded energy supplies, electricity supplies, everything to Gaza. There is complete darkness over there during the night time, and obviously the civilians are suffering over there. Is this legal? Obviously this is also not legal. Israel's plan to block the supplies of food, electricity, water and fuel in Gaza are close to 2 million people live, amounts to collective punishment. Such an action, it violates a fundamental tenet of IHL. What is that fundamental tenet? That no person should be punished for actions they didn't commit. Actually, the civilians did not attack on Israel. It was the Hamas which attacked. So Hamas should be punished, not the people. and by doing this blockade, people are being punished. Additionally, under IHL, warring parties must give advance warning to civilians, and these advance warnings should be effective. Time also should be given to the civilians to act upon those warnings. If time is not given, then those warnings are not considered to be effective. It should not be like you gave a warning and immediately you launched an attack. So for this, you will be saying to the world that I gave a warning before that. No. After giving the warning, you should wait, give time to the people to respond to that warning, and then attack, then it will be considered as effective. So Israel's warnings presently were also not considered to be effective. Now Israel has given warnings, given time for the citizens to evacuate Gaza. The citizens are evacuating Gaza because everyone obviously wants their life to be saved. But the big question is that where they will go after evacuating Gaza. They'll definitely not get entry into Israel. West Bank is one such place where they can go. But everything will be lost of theirs. So this is also against that. All, I would say, steps being taken in the present war over there are against the international law. They have to uphold that. That is very, very clear. The Indian Ocean Rim Association. Foreign ministers of these 23 countries which are part of IORA met. Sri Lanka assumed the presidentship, India the vice presidentship. Now these are some facts about it. The headquarters of IORA is in Ebene, Mauritius. Now the facts about it are over. But one thing we need to understand about this kind of organization, and that thing is Indian Ocean. Indian Ocean is an area where India is eyeing dominance. And it is not new for any kind of country. Basically, all the major countries in the world, they are eyeing to extend their influence in the water bodies. Water bodies, why? Because international trade, maximum of it happens through the water bodies. Like it is happening through the Indian Ocean region also. Around 80% of the world's container traffic passes through the Indian Ocean region, which makes it very important. And if India's presence is there, then India can safeguard the trade for other countries, just like America is doing for the entire world. If India is there, China's presence will be nullified. And China does not want India's presence to increase in IORA. So last year, China also conducted this China Indian Ocean Regional Forum, an event. So this was there. Now let's get into this. Sri Lanka to take over as chair of Indian Ocean Rim Association. This basically was the headline. Now the outcomes of this meeting: Sri Lanka took over as chair and India as vice chair. So India became the vice chairman for this time period, that is 2023 to 25. India assumed the vice chair role of IORA for this period. So India will become the chairman in 2025 or president in 2025. Saudi Arabia became the 11th dialogue partner of the association. Adoption of IORA's outlook on Indo-Pacific. This is a major thing which happened. IOIP. IORA's outlook on the Indo-Pacific. Indo-Pacific is basically that region which comprises of the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. And Indian Ocean Rim Association is over here in the Indian Ocean. So there's this linkage between Indo-Pacific, a concept which is promoted by the Western countries like USA and all. India also supports this concept because Chinese aggression is there a lot in the Indo-Pacific region, particularly South China Sea. And now through this IOIP, IORA's outlook on Indo-Pacific, we will see the integration of IORA with Indo-Pacific region, which again obviously will be helpful to India because it will help India to contain China. So let us see what is there. The outcome document welcomed the adoption of IORA's outlook on the Indo-Pacific by 22nd Council of Ministers in Dhaka in November 2022. It was there in November 2022. It appreciated India's initiative to formulate a roadmap for implementation of IOIP. So India will be formulating a roadmap, and when India will be formulating, obviously China will be in picture. China cannot miss out on the picture, and India will be focusing on increasing trade, increasing, I would say, supply chain resilience in that region. So All these things India will be targeting, and all these islands are also there in the Indian Ocean region and the Indo-Pacific. They are impacted by climate change, so India will be taking into the concerns of them also. Now about IORA. This was an organization formed in 1997, and when it was formed, it was known as the Indian Ocean Rim Association for Regional Cooperation, IORA, IORARC. IORA Secretariat means headquarters, Mauritius. It became an observer to the United Nations General Assembly and African Union in 2015, means it has got an observer status in those two organizations, United Nations and African Union. 23 member states and 9 dialogue partners. Now basically UAE also has become a dialogue partner. Now fact sheet of IORA, if I talk about the fact sheet, region is home to 35% of the world's population. This Indian Ocean region also accounts for 19% of total GDP. This is a bit less because mostly developing and underdeveloped countries are here. Moreover, 80% of seaborne trade uses routes through the Indian Ocean, which makes it highly significant. 80% of the seaborne oil trade and 1 lakh commercial vessels every year depend on this route. So again highlights the significance of this region. Membership, you can go through the membership, but here I want to highlight one country's membership, and that is none other than France. France per se is not there in the Indian Ocean region, but yes, an island which happens to be a colony of France, that is the Reunion Island, is there in the Indian Ocean region on the eastern side of Africa. It is, that is why France is there, part of a member of IORA. Objective: to promote sustainable growth, economic cooperation, to promote liberalization also, and for free movement of goods should be there within the countries or within the member countries of IORA. So overall economic development is being targeted. There are actually 8 priority areas of IORA. First is maritime safety and security, trade and investment facilitation, fisheries management, because most of them are the countries which depend on fisheries, disaster risk management, because a lot of disasters do happen, particularly cyclones, tropical cyclones, tourism and cultural exchanges, because these economies, they are tourism dependent economies, most of them. Academic, science and technology cooperation, at this level also they are collaborating. Blue economy is defined as any economic activity with respect to the waters. And women's economic empowerment, this is something unique, but yes, this was the latest addition. I think in 2018 it was added as a priority area in IORA. So a lot of women do depend upon the, I would say, income with respect to the oceans in this region. That is why we are specifically talking about women's economic empowerment as a priority area. So this was all about IORA, and this is all in today's session. I will be meeting you tomorrow with some more news, and definitely I will be accommodating your requests, some of your requests tomorrow. Till then, you know very well what to do. Keep reading, keep writing, keep learning, and most importantly, keep revising. Jai Hind, Namaste.